Okay, awesome. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the last session of the day, right before we finish our Friday sessions. My name is Quinn Blackley.
I'm Braden. Last year, we worked together at the Research and Writing Center at Brigham Young University, which is a 4-year undergraduate university located in Provo, Utah.
And while we were there, we were Writing Center consultants, and we both studied English education. And as pre-service teachers and as writing consultants, we saw the value of having a writing center for all participating students. And we were really disappointed to learn that there are very few existing writing centers in Utah at the secondary school level. And so with our faculty mentor, Dr. Jensen, who we'll introduce in a minute, we proposed a project to BYU with this primary research question in mind, which was, how can universities partner with secondary schools to build and sustain writing centers?
So we set out to learn what we could do to support teacher directors, develop tutor trainings, and work together as a partnership that benefits participants at both the secondary and post-secondary levels. And our efforts and study led to the creation of the Secondary School Writing Center University Partnership, or SSWCA. And this partnership consists of a variety of entities that share a commitment to peer collaborative writing. Together, we have worked to draft this mission statement, which we may adjust moving forward in order to help it better reflect the changing goals and needs of our partners. And as it stands now, it says, the Secondary School Writing Center University Partnership connects secondary and post-secondary writing centers to create a collaborative community that supports, enriches, and expands writing center work by identifying and sharing resources, educating and mentoring tutors, and advocating for shared visions and goals. In this presentation, each of our most prominent partners is excited to tell you about why they choose to invest in this partnership, invest their time. And they'll share with you how they contribute and what they gain from their participation. So by the end of, after hearing everybody's experiences, we hope that you will leave feeling inspired to work with your local schools and partner with them and have some ideas for what you can do to begin working towards that goal.
So our original vision for this partnership was really just to connect our university with a local secondary school and help them start a writing center. That was what we had in mind. But we soon realized that there was a lot of potential for a wider network of people to get involved. And so the members of our partnership come from different spaces, different spheres of writing center work. And so we understand and want to illustrate the value of kind of making this more diverse network for schools to work with and the strength that it brings to their writing centers. So part of our partnership, if you want to move to the next slide, down here at the bottom is Dr. Jensen. She's currently an English teaching professor at BYU. Up here is Dr. Gardner. He is the director of BYU's Research and Writing Center. And then we have Cutler, who is a teacher at Provo High School, the school that we partnered with this past year. And she is the director of the Writing Center there. So up to this point in the project, we've really focused on strengthening our connection with this one high school. So let me walk you through a little bit of the timeline, and then the rest of our presentation will kind of get through the latter portion. So about a year ago, March 2022, Braden and I, with Dr. Jensen's help, proposed this project. We got funding from BYU with something called the HUM grant, which is through the Humanities Department. And then in April, while we were working at the Writing Center, we got Tyler on board with this, and he actually dedicated a group of tutors within the Writing Center to work on this project. And that was me, Braden, and then one other tutor. So it was kind of small to begin with. And then we'll move to Rachel. Some of you here might be Writing Center directors yourselves or aspiring directors. So we're really excited to turn the time over to Rachel for a little bit so you can hear about her experience and starting this Writing Center for the first year. So.
Okay. Should I keep talking on the timeline or should you can move ahead, I think. All right, cool.
Okay.
So this is Provo High School. We are the Bulldogs. We are a high school, 9th through 12th grade, about just under 2,000 students. And we are about 53% of our students are white, 38% are Hispanic, 3% are Hawaiian, 1% are Black, 1% are Asian, 1% are Native American, and then about 3% are 2 or more of those demographics. It's Provo High is in the top 20% of diverse schools in Utah, most diverse schools in Utah, and 35% of our school is eligible for free or reduced lunch. And we have many Title I schools as feeder schools. We're in our pilot year of the Writing Center. You could probably see on this timeline that February 2023 is, sorry, let me come back here. February 2023 is when we opened our Writing Center. So very fresh, very new, barely a month old. But we are a class of 17 students who we all train collaboratively and are working on developing these writing and tutoring skills so that we can lead this Writing Center at Provo High. It started as this idea pitched to administration by teachers other than myself, who had pre-existing relationships with professors and other professionals at BYU. And whether through actually attending the university or other programs like the Central Utah Writing Project. It also kind of arose because of just like the alignment in the stars, like things just kind of fell into place. And it was all really good timing. So before we opened our Writing Center last semester in the fall, we had these bi-weekly visits from our BYU Writing Center tutors. They came to help train and develop these writing and tutoring skills during our class period. You can see in this first picture, they're modeling a tutoring session. Braden is getting some help from Quinn. And my students are observing, taking notes, figuring out like good tutoring skills and habits. We also, our BYU tutors also helped us with exchange of resources and curriculum development as this was a brand new class. This was our field trip to BYU campus in the fall in November. We were able to come, our students received tutoring on a writing project that we were working on in our class. So they were tutored by our BYU tutors. You can see that in that middle picture is one of my students getting tutored by a BYU tutor. On the left here, on the left, you can see my students or our tutors, Provo High tutors observing actual university writing session or tutoring sessions. And then over here on the right, you can see their consultation forms, observation sheets that they got to make notes on and observe, learn good tutoring practice. So that was our fall field trip. So where we are now, we opened about a month ago, a little over, almost a month and a half. And at this point, we still have these semi-weekly or bi-weekly visits from our BYU writing tutors, but the purpose of them has changed a little bit. At this point, they are doing a lot more troubleshooting, question and answering. They're helping with committee work as opposed to just modeling training session or tutoring sessions and administering trainings. They're helping our committees come up with ideas of things to work on, production of materials, refining technique and really doing a lot more like, well, in this kind of situation, what do we do? Or like, I had this weird interaction and I didn't know how to handle it. In April, we will have a field trip back to University BYU campus, get some more one-on-one tutoring experience, observe some more of the university tutoring consultations, and have kind of a tour of campus. So the big question for our secondary school teachers and directors, writing center directors, is why should we get involved in a university partnership? And I'd say the primary reason that I found at this point is time. Being writing center directors is likely not your only, like the only hat that you wear. And sometimes it seems like maybe it's just like one more thing on the plate or just one more thing to juggle. The BYU writing tutors have given me one class period every other week where I do not have to plan for it. We discuss what I hope that they'll be able to accomplish and what the tutors need. And they kind of take it away from there. And that truly does make a difference and has helped me plan curriculum. They've provided me with resources. They've helped me refine plans and identify needs in our writing center at Provo High. A second really important reason is that I have never been a writing tutor. I was not one in high school. I was not one when I was at school, in college. And I had a brief encounter with the writing center when I was at school. And I thought they were great, but I never, pursued that as an option or even thought about that as an option for me. I never planned to open a writing center or work in one as like in my profession as an English teacher. And it really just kind of fell into my lap as an exciting opportunity and something that I'd heard about, but never really thought about. Having experienced tutors like Braden and Quinn that feel both like my own peers and feel kind of like peers to my students has bridged that gap where my experience ends and my students and the tutors' experience begin. So kind of leading into this third bullet point here, or third reason to get involved, is this aspect of university mentorship. Like I said, these experienced tutors have definitely helped me to bridge the gap of understanding between my position and my students' position. But in addition to that, I've also had the opportunity to work with and learn from the director of a very successful writing center, and he'll talk to you about that later, and an English professor who has so much work and experience with writing centers in the past. So getting to learn from them has been really invaluable as I've been moving forward into like this new and unfamiliar territory for me. Student tutors are our shared interest, right? So I'm gonna say a little bit and then give some time over to Braden and Quinn to talk about our student tutor investment. But I think the first reason for student tutors to really value this partnership and get involved in something like this is because I have a very strictly teacher-student relationship with my tutors, right? I am not their peer. I can be friendly and we can enjoy working together, but I am not their peer. So the value of having these university tutors is that, like I mentioned before, it's bridging that gap between our experience. The students get to feel like they connect on a peer-to-peer level with the university tutors, and I get to see, and they get to see that peer tutoring is a friendly peer-based interaction instead of how I might model tutoring if I were tutoring students, because my relationship is so much different. So, yeah.
And ambitious students are always looking for experiences that will help them prepare for future work and educational opportunities. And so being a high school writing tutor doesn't just look good on a college application, but because you're tutoring writing, you become better writers. So these students will be more prepared and qualified to do professional and university level writing once they get there. So it prepares them for college in that way, and they'll be better able to take and give feedback on writing, and in so many different spheres that comes up in university work. So they'll be more prepared for college, but we also want to show these high school tutors that writing tutoring is a job. It's not just something they do as a volunteer in high school, but something that they can go to college and be paid for their skills and abilities as writing tutors. So that's something that we want to show them and exemplify for them.
Yes, and then the final element is this idea of increased investment, which I'll talk about in a couple of ways. The first is that, when we are coming from an established writing center and we have a lot of excitement about what we've seen writing centers accomplish for school communities, for individual students we're working with, and even for our own personal growth, we get to advocate all of those benefits to these students who are like, I've never done this before. I don't really know what's going on here. And so they get to see our excitement, and then they in turn become more excited about getting all these benefits. And so that creates this sort of snowball effect in them to take ownership in the culture that they're creating at their writing center and in growing their writing center themselves, which is really cool. And then the other thing is that BYU has a really big stake in the community in Provo. It's super close to the high school. Everyone knows, like, okay, BYU is right around the corner. And so it's cool for these students to be able to engage with this very established university and see, okay, this is not just something that my teacher came in and was like, we're going to start a writing center. This is a real thing. And it's a real community that stretches not just in Utah, but across the country and even internationally. So they get to see that there's a big stake that they get to have in this, and it just creates more of that investment.
And we would like to show you how things are going from the perspective of the high schoolers, who are obviously one of the groups that we want to benefit most from this project. In response to our survey, they've let us know that they're feeling excited about the opportunity to serve their fellow students and grow in their own skills and knowledge. These students have said, I'm looking forward to getting to help people and hopefully getting help on my writing. And I'm looking forward to making the writing center a bigger part of the school and to have more people coming in to get help.
And then a couple more students said, I really enjoy having the BYU tutors coming in to help with our writing center. I think they've helped us see how a working writing center works. They have also helped us by giving us a lot of resources and pointers so that we can be successful. And then I'm feeling a lot more confident than I was before, and I'm really excited to begin tutoring more. So it's been great to hear this positive feedback from the students we've worked with, because we've had such a great experience working with them too. And now we're going to hear from the University Writing Director, Tyler Gardner.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tyler Gardner. I direct the Writing Center at Brigham Young University, BYU, with our friends here. And I just want to talk a little bit about why a University Writing Center director might be invested in this kind of a partnership. I think sometimes this can be misunderstood in terms of like what the connection is here. And so I thought maybe from my perspective, I could tell you a little bit about what our context is and why this seemed like something that I wanted our students to be involved with. So a little bit about BYU. There's almost 35,000 students at BYU. It's a big campus. A lot's going on, a lot of different programs and different things. On our staff at the Writing Center, we have 53 tutors. And each year we do somewhere around 13,000, 14,000 sessions. So this is the past year we did 13,000 sessions, not on the dot. I think it was 1296 or something, right? But about 13,000 sessions during the last year. So I kind of bring this up to give you a sense of, we are a busy writing center, right? 13,000 sessions is a lot of sessions in a year. It feels like that for me. My office is in the center, and it is just, it's constantly things are happening and going on. So our investment for this isn't like, I'm looking for something to do. We don't have enough to do, because we do, right? Like the writing center is busy. No one's asking us to do more things. But even having said that, I think one thing that I think about as a writing center administrator is I have this dual focus. I'm thinking about providing campus support, right? Supporting the campus with their writing, but also having consultant development. And what I mean by that is making sure that tutors that are working for me, like Quinn and Braden, are having a good experience, and that this is part of their educational experience, that they're growing and learning and developing because of working in the center, or while and as they work in the center. I think that this is important to think about, because when we're thinking about what would matter, if you're thinking about, oh, I would love to partner with a university in my local area, these are the kind of areas that I would encourage you to be thinking about is, what are the ways that it benefits the university in addition to benefiting you, right? And I don't think we would get involved in this if we didn't think that there was some reciprocity here. My sense is that the more that our consultants develop, this is why we have training meetings, why we have readings and all sorts of different things, is that consultant development leads to improved campus support, right? The more that our tutors feel confident and competent, the better support they're providing on campus. And I think that's really true. When I think about the Writing Center, this is it, right? One-on-one, not staged interactions, right? One-on-one interactions where students are just like, yeah, like there's this magic that happens at the one-on-one level. This is our Writing Center on a typical day. We had a photographer come and take some photos. These are all real sessions that are happening here. This is just who was working on that time. you'll see from these circles, which are not like 0 targets, right? But the 4 red circles are sessions that are happening. And this yellow session is just a tutor who's there ready and waiting should someone come. That's kind of the thought, a thing that happens at a lot of centers, right? You're there actively tutoring, even at a busy semester like this, but there's always some downtime, right? Always a time when a student's not there, someone doesn't show up for an appointment, or for whatever reason, a tutor's there working and they don't have anything to do, or they're not working one-on-one with a student. So this is something I think a lot about, is what are the consultants doing when they're not tutoring? And they ask me this a lot, because the question is usually, can I do my homework, right? Like, what can I do when I'm here? So I try to kind of guide them through it with these instructions. I say, prioritizing our time when we're working in the Writing Center. First one is in Writing Center consultations, right? When you're in the center, the main thing is if someone's there for writing help, that's our priority always, right? That's what we're here for. But if you're not there, if you're in that yellow circle, right? Then what are you doing? We said, well, then think about trainings or project work that we have that are related to the center. And then after that, you've got self-directed things. And I usually tell them to say self-directed would be, what could you do right now that would help the center? What could you do right now that would help you be a better tutor? And lots of times they say, finishing my English homework. And I'd be great. If that's going to make you a better tutor, go for it. Okay. But this is on that level of trainings and project work. So if they don't have a consultation, we do organize our tutors, our staff is organized into different trainings and project groups. In the beginning of their time when they work for us, they're in an internship. So they have a lot of trainings, readings, writing assignments that are associated with that training. In their second semester with us, they do an intensive training for working with multilingual writers. And so they'll have those training projects that they have to do. And then as they work with us beyond that, they join a different resource, a different project work, right? Project team.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one. A different project team. And what these have typically looked like are, there's a community group, right? They're thinking about creating community in the center. There's a group that's dedicated to resource development. There's a group that's dedicated to marketing. And so for us, when Braden and Quinn came and they said, hey, we want to do this thing, I got really excited because I thought, oh, what an excellent opportunity for some meaningful project work, right? So Quinn was in a leadership position at that time. So we made Quinn okay, Quinn, you're going to have your own project group and you're going to be the leader of this project group. And we created the SSWCUP project group. And that's how it got started. And so now the people that join that are in the SSWCUP group, when they don't have a session or they don't have things going on, this is some of the stuff that they work on. They'd be working on preparing training materials. They'd be working on communicating with Rachel or with any of her students as they're doing it. Rachel's since divided up her group into different committees, and they've contacted the leaders of these different groups for different things. I know your marketing person reached out to our marketing person, so there's kind of cool connections that have happened. I know you didn't know about that, right? So if you think about the SSWCUP project group, like why have tutors be in a project group? For me, right, I'm thinking about the SSWCUP group can lead specifically to consultant development in a few ways, right? One, as I think about this, and I think I'm trying to think of the reasons I value this, right? One is that I think it is so helpful for my staff to be thinking about what they're learning in different contexts. So to transfer what they're going through into a different setting. Because they'll spend time in the center and they go through trainings with me and things. But then if they have to go and they're working with high school tutors, right, removed off campus in another space, and they have to explain why they do something, why they open a session in a certain way, right? It's really useful for their development as tutors. Similarly, as part of this, I want the Writing Center to be an educational experience for all the students that come and work there, is that this is an excellent leadership opportunity. Quinn will talk a little bit more about this though, right? That what the leadership experience that she got in managing a group like this and in having to interface with a high school teacher and planning things and getting people there, arranging teams there, I think it's excellent leadership opportunity that they can speak to in future career opportunities, but just for their own development and growth, leadership opportunity in relation to something that they like, that they enjoy, which is Writing Center tutoring. And then lastly is this professional experience. This is especially true for pre-service teachers, people that want to be in a classroom and want to especially work at the secondary level. This enhances or enlarges their lab time, essentially. They're spending a lot more time thinking and dealing with secondary schools in preparation for that kind of work. Again, I think this is what Braden and Quinn will talk about. But for me, my investment in SSWCUP is, it comes down to those things. So if I think about why we got involved, when Braden and Quinn said, we want to do this, and I was like, yes, let's do it, is this idea of community connection. I, as an educator in my context, am invested in the university reaching out beyond its walls and being invested in the community and connecting with them. And this seemed like a project that was right down of like, we can use things that we like, that we have experience with, to connect to the community around us. As I've been kind of talking about this whole time, consultant development, this seems like such a cool opportunity for our consultants to develop and think about different things. And then lastly, sometimes those project works, the project work that we come up with, some of it feels more meaningful than others, right? And this to me was a very clear, meaningful project work that I was like, yes, this is awesome. I'm gonna dedicate resources to this because I think that students that are working on this project in the center get a ton out of it. So I would be happy to answer more questions if you've got questions on my perspective in relation to this partnership. But I'll just kind of end by saying I've been really very pleased with our partnership here. I've been so happy to hear the success stories that Braden and Quinn bring back to the center. When the field trip came, I was so excited. So many of our tutors showed up to be there and to work with the secondary school tutors. They thought it was so cool at Writing Center. They don't want to be secondary teachers themselves. They just thought it was so cool that secondary students were coming and they were there. They showed up. We did a pizza lunch afterwards for Q&A. And I thought it was just a great experience for our tutors as well as the tutors at Provo High.
Very good.
So as Tyler said, by working with these students and helping them learn to be writing tutors, I feel like I've become a better tutor. By explaining the principles of tutoring, I've come to understand them better myself. And being a part of this project has allowed me to put my education into application in ways that most of my fellow pre-service teachers don't get to do. I've been able to I'm getting extra practice with lesson planning and giving lessons and interacting with students. And I've been able to network with English teachers and Writing Center directors and school administrators. So that's been wonderful. And I feel like participating in this venture has also allowed me to interact with my professors and think about research and present my findings in ways that I wouldn't have been able to do through my normal undergraduate studies. So I feel like that's preparing me more for grad school, which I'm really looking forward to someday, because I've been able to be more involved. So I look forward to continuing to be more involved in projects and close collaboration someday as a grad student.
And then I actually graduated from BYU in December and have recently, thank you. It was a long road. Just kidding, it's great. I actually began working as a proposal writer for an engineering company, which wasn't really what I thought I would be doing right now, but I'm here. And I actually found that being involved in this project and Writing Center work in general really was a huge benefit to me when I entered the professional world in ways that I didn't really expect, to be honest. When I was interviewing with different companies, they were very curious to hear about this experience that I'd had and the leadership opportunities that I had, the communication skills that I built, and really the writing experience that I had too has proved to be invaluable. So just being a part of this has been so great for me and preparing me for my future. Okay, so you may have seen, you may have seen at the beginning when all those pictures were there that my picture was like in this, what was in this corner. I actually represent all three of these entities. And just like Braden and Quinn said, when they first envisioned this project, they envisioned a partnership between a university institution and a high school. And they saw it as like this binary partnership. But I am an English teaching professor, meaning I prepare undergraduate students to become middle and high school English teachers. And I'm like, don't leave me out of this equation, because there's reasons that I am invested in your growth and development professionally, specifically going into the teaching profession. And a lot of that is rooted in my own experience. I was a high school English teacher who started a writing center here in Fairfax County.
And for me, a really big part of my professional growth and trajectory was rooted in this sense of network and community and applying what I knew was good practice in the English classroom and creating opportunities for tutors to engage in that work in the Writing Center. I don't have to convince anybody in this room that that is a good thing. But what I want to point out about this little graphic, we call it the flower, the petals, right, is that there is not a one entity in the middle. So BYU is not at the center of this, like doing all of this outreach work. In fact, all of these petals are invested because each of these separate entities are invested in these common commitments to writing, teaching writing, developing teachers, developing tutors, growing professionals and writers and scholars, right? And so what I want to point out is that a lot of times people wonder about these partnerships and they think like, well, who initiated it and how did it start and who's kind of like the leader and who's the follower, like who's gaining and who's giving, right? But why we designed this graphic was because we wanted to really make it evident that all of us are invested together in that center point. And so that at any point, if any of these entities needed to like take a step back, I mean, we're lucky to have Tyler and his energy and his like gumption and excitement about this work, but not every university writing center is going to approach it with that much like gung ho. And so if it came time that the BYU Writing Center had to kind of like take a step back, we don't want the whole partnership to fizzle. And that's why we wanted to help articulate for everyone in this room, like what is everybody's shared investment so that it's not dependent on like one director or one like dynamic personality. So I just want to share briefly from these different entities that I brought to the partnership, some of the reasons why it helped stitch this partnership together in ways that I think will make it last. English programs. So English teaching programs, many of you have probably gone through them, but ours is a teacher certification program. Students who graduate from our program get a secondary school English teaching license in the state of Utah. And like many programs, this involves clinical experience throughout their program, culminating in student teaching in their final semester. But many of our students are not spending a tremendous amount of time in classrooms, which is why for me, thinking about ways that Braden and Quinn have gotten all of this extra, like really authentic experience being in the classroom, solving problems together with Rachel, who would be like a future colleague of theirs, interfacing directly with students, both as a whole class as well as one-on-one. It felt like such an amazing complement to like the built-in clinical experiences that they are getting already just by being students in our program. So additional clinical experience, also learning different kinds of pedagogical practices and thinking about what writing instruction can look like at whole group and individual levels. I think, and thinking about feedback to writing in all of these different ways, I think it's enhancing and adding to what they're already learning as pre-service teachers. Honestly, as a university, we are invested in relationships that we have in schools because we have partners in schools as mentor teachers who are the ones that take our students when they leave the university and teach them how to be a teacher in a real school setting. And so when we partner with schools like Provo High and our students are making relationships and making an impact, that benefits us as a pre-service teacher program. Because then we start to understand like there's mutual trust, there's mutual investment. They want our students, we want their teachers, and it's a really good thing for us as well. And then additionally, we've all talked about like the undergraduate research mentorship projects that these students have worked on. That's an advantage to me. I'm a tenure seeking professional. I have to publish on the things that I'm learning about, and working with students in developing and researching and thinking about how things are actually happening in the field is beneficial to them, but also it's beneficial to me as a professional in my career. And then finally, it creates this leadership pipeline. And so Lucy Leishman is in the room. She was one of our former BYU tutors, pre-service teachers. Now she's a teacher at Washington Irving Middle School. They brought 24 tutors here today. So she moved across the country to Virginia. She's teaching here now, and it creates this leadership pipeline so that teachers are thinking about themselves, not just like as a first-year teacher, but they're envisioning a path forward and these opportunities that might come their way throughout their careers, and helps kind of like reinvest into this project I think we all are invested in, which is expanding secondary school writing centers. So getting students involved as pre-service teachers only like leads them toward more preparation for that. And then just briefly, hopefully, here's my pitch. Hopefully you guys have seen the Journal of Peer Tutoring in Secondary Schools. But that is a journal that's sponsored by SWCA. And I was asked to be the editor of this. So when I entered my job at BYU, I also was tasked with starting and running this journal, which is a huge task. And so for me, it wasn't like anybody had to convince me that secondary school writing centers mattered, but I needed help. And I found that the tutors who were writing center tutors and English teaching majors were the perfect overlap of students to be editorial assistants. And that's how I started creating relationships with those students, which then led to relationships through Braden and Quinn, who were editorial assistants, to then have them thinking about what might be a next project for us. So this is not something that you will all have as part of your network, but I just wanted to point it out as one of the serendipities that Rachel mentioned, just the kind of good luck, good timing, good relationships that became at the foundation of where we ended up. And then finally, here are just some of the outcomes. So here is Braden and Quinn. They were presenting their research at an undergraduate research conference at the University of Utah. That was in last month. This is an article that was written by one of our former BYU tutors, who's now a high school teacher at the Academy of Choice in Texas. And she published an article based on research she did in the Journal of Peer Tutoring in Secondary Schools. And this is an annotated bibliography that Lucy and another former tutor were working on. So it just shows some of the outcomes, the professional presentations and publications that become available to these students through their participation. And then really briefly, I'll just also mention, has anybody in the room been involved with the National Writing Project at any level? Okay, which one? In Michigan. You've been, yeah, Northern Virginia. So I came from Virginia and I was part of the Northern Virginia Writing Project. You might have recognized that this conference is being co-sponsored by the Northern Virginia Writing Project. And when I moved to Utah, I became part of the Central Utah Writing Project, and now I'm directing it. And so that is another entity that we linked in because the Writing Project, unlike the English teaching program, who's working with pre-service teachers, the Writing Project works with practicing teachers who are seeking additional opportunities to be leaders and to advocate and to connect. And so it seemed like a very natural partner. And in fact, there is a history of National Writing Project sites supporting secondary school writing center work. So you may be familiar with this book by Don Feld and Jen Wells. Maybe you didn't know that it was co-published by the National Writing Project, or that there is on the Right Now studio, the Writing Project studio, there is a subgroup that is in partnership with the Secondary School Writing Center Association. And so there's already a natural link that exists. So that could be an interesting way in if you have relationships that exist with other teacher consultants or with the Writing Project site where you are. So I just want to point out that you probably can see this is a pretty cool group. This is a lot of people who kind of it didn't take a lot to get them invested in this work. But you may be thinking oh, I've tried the university or I've tried the whatever, and I just feel like I keep hitting dead ends. And I guess what I want to point out is that it's hard to really map out how to do this work because it's so rooted in the relationships that exist and the context that you're working from. So I'm just going to let Rachel finish the presentation by talking a little bit about how serendipity and relationships work so that you can create a partnership where you fill in the blanks of who are the entities or the people and what is that central common research interest or practice interest that can tie and bind those groups together in an invested way.
Yeah, this has been definitely a common thread in our experience is this idea of good luck, good timing, using what kind of falls into your lap to really take advantage. I think our main recommendations, next steps moving forward, how do we make these partnerships, start collaboration, is really to just identify and cultivate the relationships that you already have in your own professional life with current partners or potential partners or previous partners. Dr. Jensen was my university supervisor when I was doing my student teaching internship. And so it really is just a matter of, pulling on these threads, finding connections, finding these moments of serendipity. And whether that is with your previous university partners or with student teachers at your school or students that have graduated, previous tutors that have graduated from your high school and are now working with a university in the area. And kind of like Amber said, was do it your way, right? There's not a one size fits all model. It really is just like thinking about the partnerships that already exist, thinking about the people in your life that you already know that can be useful here. Like what other teachers do you know that have started writing centers or that have connections with other universities? Like where are they kind of like the through lines to the different connections and the potential partners here? So yeah, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us. We have, well, I mean, we'll take questions now, but also like if in the future, if something arises and you're like, wow, I really wish that I had their contact information, please feel free to email us. But
yeah, let's come up here and we have like a couple minutes, and then as people are transitioning to the end session, if people want to linger and ask any questions, we'd be happy to answer.
Yeah, do you want me to read this?
Yes.
So practically speaking, what kinds of permissions, background checks, etc., were required to bring college tutors onto a high school campus? And how regularly do your tutors have boots on the ground in a high school campus?
The good thing is that by working with pre-service teachers, they've already cleared all of the fingerprinting and all of the licensure requirements for getting into schools. And so that actually is one of the really great benefits. So a lot of our pre-service teachers also are signed up to be substitute teachers at the school. So actually Rachel is not at her school today. And 2 members of our SWCUP project team are subbing for Rachel and teaching her class, which she didn't have to plan.
It's really great.
And so, but one of them is already, like, she's Rachel's full day sub. So that's a really good question. And I think a valid one to bring up. Another advantage to bringing that overlap between pre-service and writing center tutors, because they have already cleared those loopholes.
Yeah. And also, I mean, they're there every other week usually. I mean, I think it overall ends up being less than that, just because of like assemblies or whatever. But generally speaking, they're there about every other week on Fridays, because Friday is like a shorter day. So.
What other questions does anybody in the room have? Thank you.
For the students, Braden, who are already involved in the writing center and doing secondary education, like that was just kids met. Right?
Yes, yeah. So that's kind of one of the threads that got pulled, you could say, is I'd been there for almost 2 years. You'd been there for a year and a half. And we were working with Dr. Jensen. She was just one of our professors, and we were her editorial assistants. And we were like, oh, there's this grant opportunity. What's a project that we could do? Well, let's try to launch a writing center at a high school. And we actually just went to Tyler looking for some resources when we were writing our grant. And he said, okay, tell me more about this. And that's kind of how that relationship got merged to begin with.
And then a follow-up.
Yes.
Are you then working with Amber to then promote of those 2 things, and also with the writing center to say, hey, it's an opportunity perhaps for future?
Yeah, so one thing that's been really cool for us is I really value pre-service English teachers working in the center for reasons that the curriculum they're working on, it's great experience for them, but it's also great for us because they're already thinking about teaching and effective strategies and things. So I think it's a really nice complement to the work that they're doing. I don't know if we would say we emphasize it in our recruiting. We certainly welcome it, right? Like everybody that's a pre-English teacher that applies, we interview because we know we're doing this work. And so it's like, hey, we do get more. We're fortunate that we get more applications than we have positions. And so we don't interview everybody that applies. But if they're in English teaching, we're like, oh, there's potential here to contribute to this project work. And we also just are there. So that's something Amber and I have been working on together. She's been
presenting it to the intro to the English teaching major, like this is an opportunity. If you want more time in schools, if you're invested in this, go get a job at the writing center, because then there's all this synergy that happens from that. And I think students are excited about that possibility.
In this new round of we hire in like batches, and we hired 12 for this winter semester. I think 4 of them are pre-service English teachers, so they're kind of all a pipeline to continue this work, which we're excited about.
Good question. Yeah.
I have a question for Rachel. What does your school schedule look like every day?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the way that we've kind of set this up is that we are open right now during lunch for just like walk-ins. During our actual class period is when we'll do trainings, we'll work on our own writing projects, and then we'll have BYU come in and do trainings and practice sessions and et cetera. And on Friday, we kind of have a shortened schedule. So we have A-Day, B-Day. Classes are about 80 minutes, which is very long, but it's great. And on Fridays, we have these hour-long class periods. So the BYU tutors will come in. Every time we have class on a Friday, they'll come into our class period and do this kind of, and that's just kind of the way that we organized it, because we felt like that was pretty reliable. We always knew when that was coming. And so that felt like the most efficient way to do things. But we try to make sure during the week, during our class periods, we organize with teachers to tutor during class. So we were open during lunch, and then we also try to tutor at least once a week another class as well. And you've not ever been there to see tutoring. Yeah, no, they just come on Fridays and hang out with us then.
So I'm sorry, you actually have
Yes. Yeah. Which was kind of a big.
That's actually how the writing, it's a little backwards from how it normally works. Usually the writing center starts and then the training class comes. They advocated and had an opportunity to start the class, and then they built the writing center to fit into the class.
This has been, it's been in the works for a long time. Like I said, like this is my first year at Proville High School, but they have had talk of a writing center for years.
10 years.
Yeah, for years. And so I think they just kind of felt like this was the way for us to start this project.